Quarterback, tight end, and defense and special teams, streams of the week for fantasy football, week 5. Sam Howell plays tonight, Thursday Night Football, against the Chicago Bears. He had a bounce-back week last week, throwing a season-high 41 passing attempts, along with finishing with a career-high 40 rushing yards. 2 games this season above 19 fantasy points. He's also had 2 games of 290 and 299 passing yards. The Chicago Bears allow the second most fantasy points per game to quarterbacks this season. Daniel Jones faces the Miami Dolphins, who allow the third most fantasy points per game to quarterbacks. Josh Allen just went for 320 passing yards and 4 touchdowns, along with a rushing touchdown. Justin Herbert earlier this season went 229 through the air. He also rushed for a touchdown as well. Jones had a huge week 2 against the Cardinals. He threw for 321 yards and 2 touchdowns. He rushed for 59 and a rushing touchdown. Season high 66 rushing yards last week. If Miami is allowing quarterbacks to rush on them, he's a rushing quarterback. Joshua Dobbs faces the Cincinnati Bengals. He's had 2 top 10 fantasy performances through his 4 starts. 3 straight games rushing for over 40 yards. 41 passing attempts last week when he tossed a pair of touchdowns. Dobbs has had 2 weeks over 23 fantasy points, and it's going to be important for him to step up against the Bengals this week. For the tight end position, we have our first stack here. Logan Thomas tonight, Thursday Night Football, against the Chicago Bears. Week 1, Logan Thomas had 8 targets. He then followed that up the next week by scoring a touchdown before exiting the game early and missing week 3. Weeks 1 and 4, he's had decent receiving yards, 43 and then 41 yards. Our second streamer stack, we have Zach Ertz here. The Bengals allow the 6th most fantasy points per game to tight ends this season. This year, Tyler Higbee caught 5 passes for 71 yards. Mark Andrews caught 5 passes for 41 yards and a touchdown. 3 of Zach Ertz's games, he's finished with 10, 8, and 10 targets. He's had 2 games above 50 receiving yards. He's had 3 top 12 weeks and 2 top 10 weeks for the tight end position. And last, we're going to go deeper here. Tyler Conklin against the Broncos. Denver allows the 5th most fantasy points per game to tight ends this season. Cole Kmet just caught 7 balls for 85 yards and 2 touchdowns last week. Zach Wilson, in his last matchup against the Chiefs, actually looked pretty decent. Conklin's usage has trended up after being targeted only once in week 1. He's had 6, 5, and 6 targets the last 3 weeks. So some usage consistency right there. He's had 2 games of 50-plus receiving yards, so I think targets plus a score could be a good week for Conklin. And last, my defense and special teams stream of the week is the Detroit Lions. The Carolina Panthers have scored the 9th least points. Their season high in points scored during a week was with Andy Dalton, their backup quarterback. The Panthers are also 8th least in total yards. The Lions have had back-to-back weeks of double-digit fantasy scoring against the Atlanta Falcons and the Green Bay Packers. Atlanta only scored 6 points against the Lions, and Detroit had 7 sacks in that game. Last week against the Packers, they had 2 interceptions and 5 sacks, so I like them this week against the Panthers. Follow us at Fantrax for consistent fantasy football content to help you guys win.